Hello, this is Amanda Malabi with BUS312, and today we're going to go over Chapter 20. Chapter 20 is all about sustainable marketing, social responsibility, and ethics. So just take a look at this marketing process, and it's basically the entire marketing steps that we go through the entire book, chapters 1 through 20. We start off with the first couple of chapters really understanding customer wants. Then we go into how to drive a mission statement, values, etc., to attract a target market. We then start constructing that integrated marketing program, putting it all together, figuring out what product we're going to sell, the pricing, the distribution, and the promotions that we're going to offer to that target market that we define in that mission area. We then go into engaging customers and building profitable relationships. We try to figure out how we're going to do it from a global standpoint, from a local standpoint, what types of media we're going to use, what types of influencers we're going to use, and anything that will attract that customer's black box. And we actually harness all of these three processes together in this marketing process, including all types of technology, social media, MIS, IT, customer relationship management tools, etc. We really define that the entire globe is one market, and then we can separate it into smaller markets by countries, by cities, by demographics. And then what we're going over today is just how do you put it all together with the environmental issues and societal issues that we have to also really be aware of and be responsible for it as good marketers. And when we put this all together, the technology, the global market, the societal and ethical marketing concepts, and the entire marketing strategy together, this is where it all comes together in an integrated way to create value and to get our customers to love us so much that they never want to buy anything or never want to deal with anyone else again, because they feel that the money they give us brings them much more value than they've ever wanted before. And what this does is when you do this right, when you're a good marketer, whether it's for yourself on LinkedIn, whether it's on your interview or your internship, or whether you're actually marketing your first product for your new business or for a large corporation or hospital, what you do is you actually create really satisfied loyal customers who then create lifetime value for you because they don't leave you. And that increases market share for your company or your brand. And from that standpoint, that's how you create true value from a customer. Today's objectives are 5. One is defining sustainable marketing. The second one is identifying the major social criticisms of marketing, and there's many. Number 3 would be consumerism, environmentalism, and how that impacts marketing strategies. Describe the principles of sustainable marketing and explain the role of ethics in marketing. So let's go through objective number 1, which is defining sustainable marketing, and discuss the importance. Sustainable marketing is super key, and it's all about making sure that you are socially, environmentally responsible from a marketing standpoint, and that you meet present needs of consumers and businesses while really preserving and enhancing not only the products and marketing and your social viewpoints into your products for future generations. And again, it's really critical to understand that that's for the future. Sustainable marketing is targeting customers today, but really thinking of that future. And if there's any targets on any of these slides, just make sure that you really understand these concepts because they'll most likely show up in quizzes and exams. So let's take a look at a great model of sustainable marketing. One is trying to really understand the needs of a consumer and the needs of a business. And I really like this model because it just simply gives you a way of thinking about marketing in a visual form. So if you take the needs of the business in the future, which you don't necessarily always want to think about it today, but what's going on in the future, you would get into this category here, which would either be strategic planning concepts or sustainable marketing concepts. And as far as sustainable marketing is concerned, you think about the now, but mostly of the future. So when you put those two together, the best marketing approach would be sustainable marketing concept. If you looked at something only from a now perspective and from a now standpoint of the needs of the business, then you would use a marketing concept and so on. Again, you'll need to understand how to use these and what each one of these means, but we'll go over them one by one. So let's identify the social criticisms of marketing. Well, interestingly enough, there's something called the American Marketing Association. It's where the code of ethics for marketers are, and it's a must for all of us to understand. There's three main things. Do no harm. Avoid harming somebody consciously or via omission. Just by not telling somebody doesn't mean that you're not responsible. Foster trust in the marketing system. It's good for all of us. It's about having good faith and fair dealings. Embrace your ethical values, meaning that building relationships and enhancing the customer confidence is a major part of your whole responsibility in marketing. Whether you market yourself on LinkedIn, making sure that you have your ethics in line there and that you're not exaggerating, for example, or whether you're producing a product at a hospital, whatever it might be, make sure that you embrace your ethical concepts. And again, there's a target here, so know that the American Association has these three concepts that we follow. So let's take a few of the criticisms of marketing and look at the impacts to individual consumers. There's a few of them we're going to discuss. What are the impacts of high prices, deceptive practices, high pressure selling, shoddy or harmful or unsafe products? Sometimes we're marketers and they become products that we sell become unsafe. There's a potential for quality issues. Planned obsolescence. So if you work for Apple, you're going to have this issue that is always going to come up. So how do you deal with that? And then poor service to disadvantaged consumers. And we'll take a look at what that means and how you should overcome that. So let's take a look at high prices. Obviously, there's a complaint here. Prices are really high due to high cost of distribution, advertising, promotion, and excessive markups. We know that exists. We know that it's all over our markets. So when we go to Walmart, we see Dove soap, and then we see the soap that doesn't have tons of marketing with the same ingredients and potentially the same people selling it and producing it, but one costs double than the other. One soap costs $1, the other one costs $3 because of the marketing and the distribution and everything that it has to pay for. So that's the complaint. So the response from a marketing standpoint is that intermediaries, the marketing people, the distribution people, they're all important and they offer value, but you got to be responsible for it as well. If you can't, and the consumer gets to decide at the end of the day which one they want. And remember that advertisers really are about informing buyers of the availability and the merits of having one product or the other. So your packaging, even though it may be similar products, there might be something different. And so you need to be aware of that and market that and really be transparent about your products. So that's how you overcome the high prices issues. Everybody in the distribution of a product is important. It's part of our economy. And we, as marketers, we're going to try to inform a buyer as much as possible. And we want consumers to understand the cost of doing business. All right. The next issue is around deceptive practices. So the complaints here is that companies use deceptive practices that lead to consumers to believe they get more value than they actually do. And this happens a lot. They fall into three categories: deceptive pricing, deceptive promotion, and deceptive packaging. I mean, who hasn't bought potato chips and realized that there's 70% air there and 30% chips? So these are things that you need to be aware of. If you're at Lay's and you go to your corporate VP and tell them, hey, there's something wrong there, one of the things that you could do is start adding more chips in there, or getting consumer groups and seeing what they think about it. So again, you can actually, as a marketer, enhance and influence your company's relationship with consumers by being that advocate for that consumer through data. So even though Lay's, we all know this happens, you can go do research that says that customers don't like this and that you can sell more if you add more value or you're more transparent. And that's absolutely possible. I've seen people do it. So please, please never be afraid to do that. There is something called the FTC. The FTC enacted in 1938, so defective practices have been in the forefront for a long time. It's a federal trade commission, and its power is to regulate unfair deceptive acts or practices. So the response here is that marketing in general, even if there are some practices that are not completely aligned with being socially and ethically responsible, we do have the FTC that helps us. So this makes it a clear line of what is deception, what is alluring imagery, what if it's puffery, exaggerating yourself. So, again, what you can say to people is, yes, I'm in marketing and we know that things exist. I, as my own marketer of my own products or helping a company market, am fully aware of that, and we're trying to overcome those issues. And we also have the FTC that helps us make sure that products aren't harmful, make sure that products provide all the benefit that they say, and make sure that products are made well. There's a lot of criticism about high pressure selling, which is also part of marketing. That complaint is that salespersons use really high selling tactics and put a lot of pressure. And an example of that would be the car buying process. We also know that there's a lot of new businesses that opened up that actually are marketing about how to actually build a relationship through the car buying process, but through more transparency. So the response here is, yes, there has been high pressure selling, but we as a company, we're actually looking into ways to bring value through perception and through information to build relationships. So we're responsible for building that long-term relationship that brings value to our consumers. The other criticism is that we have shoddy, harmful, and unsafe products. And believe me, there's, for every product that's out there, there is some product that's going to fail. That's just part of the total quality management process. We know that a certain percentage will fail. So people are going to say, well, you're marketing a product that's hurtful or has poor quality. There's potential for that, and some things are even harmful. And a good example is what we discussed with the Tide. And here's a funny, ad of the Tide being part of Tide Pods Oreos. But good marketers realize that there is no value in marketing these harmful products. So even with the Tide perspective, um, as we saw, maybe they didn't react fast enough and they needed to. And in the end, the reason that Tide put these products out there was to attract customers, not children, to eat them. So they just have to rethink about how they're going to do the packaging and make it safer and market it better, market it that it's a safe product. So in response to that is that for the most part, marketers don't want to put those type of products out there. And if there is, they're going to try to resolve that very quickly through transparency and communication. What about planned obsolescence? If you're going to work at Apple or Amazon or any of the big technology firms, you know that you are going to be told, well, why are you selling Apple products? Why are you there? Every 6 months, a product comes out and it's obsolete. I can't believe you're working there. Well, the truth of the matter is that that's their marketing model. So what you got to do is you got to say, well, that's how we keep competitive advantage. We got to keep up with the technology, and it also drives the prices down. So if we didn't have a bunch of cell phones or a bunch of different TVs every couple of months, the prices would be high. The first TVs that came out were $3, $4, $5,000. The large screen TVs. Now they're down to $300. That is because competitive markets also raise the price down. So planned obsolescence is part of that competitive market. What about poor service to disadvantaged consumers? So let's talk about what that means. It's taking advantage of someone because they're a customer that's poor, or they're thought to be in a disadvantaged perspective. So let me give you an example. So Amazon. Amazon sells product and it's all computer based. So based off of the need for a product, it will raise its prices or the shipping prices, especially if it's running out. So in the hurricane season, they actually had water that was $5.97, but take a look. They added $39 in shipping. So what do you think about that? So a 12 bottled waters that really cost $6 and used to be free now, are almost $50. So from that standpoint, is that okay? Well, to get to the hurricane people, there's going to be people that are overtime. Maybe it's harder to get to them. So from that standpoint, is it okay to do this? What about people who don't have the money? What about the people that are, actually suffering? And the fact that Amazon makes a bunch of money and they have money. So this is another practice that is something that companies do, whether it's, intentional or not. In the case of Amazon, it's because of the back end systems that try to figure out the cost of transportation. But the good news is that what you can say is, we can make mistakes as marketers, but we do have the FTC that also holds us really responsible. And once Amazon's figured this out, and there was a lot of hoopla around it from the media, they actually donated a lot of water. So from that standpoint, consumers and the FTC hold us accountable if we don't make the right decisions. And again, here is another example of water that ended up being $20, but you got free shipping. So again, the FTC and consumers will hold us accountable when it becomes, you know, fraudulent or it hurts the majority. So the next complaint is, does marketing drive materialism? Are we too materialistic because of marketing? So the response there is that people do have strong defenses against advertising and other marketing tools. At the end of the day, it's them, that person, that human being inside that gets to decide what they're going to buy or not. So from that standpoint, it's your job to market and inform, but it's their job to educate. So, for example, in the McDonald's ethics case, where McDonald's is selling products or attracting young kids, um, is it the kids' responsibility? And is it unethical to sell to kids? Or is it the parents? And from a virtue theory, as long as you're transparent about what your product is and why you're doing it, and the parent gets to decide, the person who actually has the money who can go and buy gets to decide. So McDonald's has done everything that they need to do from a transparency standpoint of telling you how many calories are in a meal, what products are in that meal. It's that parent that gets to be the final decision maker. Other criticisms are that there's too few social goods, that businesses oversell private goods at the expense of public goods. So that could be true. However, what the response here is that yes, that is absolutely true. And marketing is really trying to have that balance between public and public goods. So that is a current focus that everybody's working on from a marketing standpoint. What about culture pollution? The complaint is that marketing and advertising create culture pollution. So here is an example of cultural pollution. Here is New York City, Broadway, and all the ads in just one little, place in the city. Well, the response is that marketing and advertising are out there to reach a target on audiences and consumers, and everybody's got alternatives. So if marketing is out there and putting this, it's because those consumers are wanting that there too. So it's a give and a take. So it's acceptable. If it wasn't acceptable, boy, believe me, there'd be a lot of people complaining. So, and they would stop. But since it is, and it's part of that overall culture there in New York City, it's actually part of, that vibe there. So consumers at the end of the day have alternatives and they have a voice. And if they don't like it, then they have their pockets and their money to vote against or for a product. So let's take a look at Some other impacts of social criticisms against marketing. Some of it is, well, marketing, there's a lot of acquisition of competitors, there's a lot of barrier of entry, and there's unfair competitive marketing practices. Absolutely. But from a marketing standpoint, what you got to realize is that you have your own ethics, and you also get to choose where you work and how you market. And if you feel uncomfortable at any point in time, then you need to make that aware, and then you need to make those hard decisions if those companies align with you or not. All right, let's take a look at objective number 3, which is defining consumerism and environmentalism and how that impacts marketing. Well, there's obvious marketing to children, and we've talked about that in depth, especially around McDonald's. And consumerism is that movement where agencies are actually trying to improve the rights of buyers and in relation to sellers. So there is that movement, there is that social responsibility, and at least we're talking about it. So from that standpoint, there's a lot of organizations out there that are really protecting children. They're really protecting the consumer, from the FTC to advertising for children organizations, etc. So the good news is that there's a lot of people promoting safe advertising. There's also the traditional buyer's rights. Know your rights, and there's a lot of people out there that are really advocates of helping people understand their rights. Your rights are the right not to buy a product that is offered for sale. You have the decision, the right to expect the product to be safe, the right to expect the product to perform as claimed. And comparing these rights, many believe that the balance of power lies on the seller's side. So I know that buyers really do understand this. And because of this, there's a much bigger impact, not only on marketing, but the company as a whole, to deliver good products, deliver good customer service. Otherwise, believe me, because I've done it myself, I will be out there on social media explaining my terrible experience. So the power really is on the seller side. We as marketers communicate to our target markets, and they get to decide at the end how they will support or not support your product through engaging, and hopefully engaging with demand, which is actually going through with a purchase of a product or service because of a need or want that they've expressed. So advocates call for a couple major things. Advocates against consumerism call for the right to be well informed. Absolutely. You need to be an advocate for consumers as well. So think about it from a marketing standpoint. Make sure that you inform people of important aspects of the product. You are also the advocate to protect them against questionable products. That is part of marketing as well. You as a marketer also have to influence products and marketing practices in a way that will actually improve quality of life. That should be a goal as well. And then as an advocate, you also should have the right to consume in any way that you want to do so in the world. And so does your customer. So, but at the end of the day, consumer advocates will also say that we have to have that balance to make sure that what we consume today will also be available for our future generations. And marketing should also consider that as well. So that's where sustainable marketing comes into place. So sustainable marketing, again, is for the future. And one of those things is called environmentalism. Environmentalism is really hot now in marketing. It's an organized movement where citizens, businesses, governments, agencies, they all work together to improve the living environment. And when we do that, we have sustainability. And nothing is more important than sustainability of our resources, especially here in Hawaii. We have the most amazing resources in the world. We have to sustain them for the long term, not only for us, but for our economies and for our future generations, but also for the planet. And when we do that all together, it sustains it also from an earnings perspective. Obviously, tourism is important here, but if we don't protect our oceans, we don't protect our resources, we don't protect our students who are trying to stay here and fight for good wages and good jobs and opportunities, then we're hurting our ability to maintain profits in the long term. So again, environmental sustainability includes pollution prevention and product stewardship. No, again, nothing is more important than pollution prevention and in eliminating and minimizing waste than here in Hawaii. So here's a great example of trash-free Hawaii, and I love their logo and having the fish in it. And again, we're all very aware of trash bags and sun tan lotions and sunscreens that are impacting our oceans. So it impacts our fish, and it impacts our tourism, and it impacts the world. So from that standpoint, environmental sustainability is super key. And I believe Hawaii does a really good job of product stewardship, of trying to be on top of all of that to sustain our beautiful islands. Another way to sustain is by having technology like new clean technologies. And new clean technologies are like the solar powered here. Those are absolutely critical because we are also on an island and energy is expensive. So we're trying to find ways to use technology as a competitive advantage and also to maintaining our environmental resources for the long run. So let's look at consumer actions to promote sustainable marketing from a visual standpoint. So again, we have the environmental sustainable and sustainable value model. So sustainability is from either a today perspective or a tomorrow standpoint, as far as thinking about it from a now versus a future. And then whether it's an internal environmental issue or an external environmental issue. This is a great framework to consider. So let's say that it was an external environmental issue. So the options here would be product stewardship, which would be minimizing environmental impacts throughout the entire life cycle. And if it was a future state issue, then you would want to focus on sustainability vision, which is developing a strategy framework for creating sustainable value. So again, you just need to understand this model of whether it's an external or internal resource and whether you're focusing on something today or tomorrow. And hopefully you're focusing on tomorrow. And if it's an external resource, for example, you would then use this marketing strategy, which is sustainable vision. If it was an internal resource, then you would focus on new clean technology. Let's take a look at another major model, which is the decision marketing model on areas that you may be called into question under law. So this is great, especially for ethics discussions. So when you're a marketer, these are the 7 key questions to ask. So there's selling decisions. Are you bribing anybody? Are you stealing trade secrets? Are you misrepresenting your product? If you're doing any of those, then you probably should stop and think of a different way to advertise. There's advertising decisions. Make sure that there's no false advertising or deceptive advertising or bait and switch. The Bruno Mars fiasco, to me, that was a bait and switch. I didn't get a ticket and I was going to buy one, and then all of a sudden it got sold to another buyer. I don't know how that happened, but to me, that was a bait and switch issue. So I complained. And hopefully, if you guys were in that situation, you did too. Channel decisions. Make sure that you don't have an exclusive dealing. Do you have an exclusive territorial distributorship? Are you having tie-in agreements? Do you have dealer rights? Make sure that you're protecting your channels too, but that it's fair and that it's abiding by all the laws. There's product decisions, packaging decisions like fair packaging, pricing decisions. Don't do price fixing or predatory pricing, etc. And then last but not least, make sure that from a competitive relations standpoint, that you are not in any way anti-competitive, that you're not trying to be a monopoly, or that you aren't really trying to focus on marketing in a way that is a barrier to entry or is a predatory competitor in any space. So again, this is a great little model of questions to ask yourself to make sure that you're always abiding by the law from a marketing standpoint. Objective number 4, this whole chapter, a section is going to be on the exams and quizzes, so please make sure you understand it. So let's take a look at some sustainable marketing principles that you should follow. One is, again, this goes back to this model of the different ways to use technology or marketing. And the first one we're going to look at is consumer oriented marketing. The second one is customer value marketing. Third one is innovative marketing, sense of mission marketing, and societal marketing. So these are 5 different ways that you can create sustainable marketing principles and practices that are profitable for you in the short and the long term. So let's take a look at consumer oriented marketing. This is where we view marketing activities from the consumer's point of view, and we deliver superior value. So here's just a little bit of an example. So an operations focused versus a customer focused. So here, somebody would just say, I'm just doing my job, buy the book. If you looked at it from a customer standpoint, you would just say, just doing my job, by the customer. So you become that customer versus the product. And that, when you do that, that's where the real value comes into play, because you're putting yourself in your consumer shoes, and why and how you can bring value to that consumer through marketing practices. The next one is consumer value marketing, and this is investing in customer value building marketing strategies that create value for customers. And again, you are trying to understand where is that balance between the product and the pricing and what you're delivering and what the customer wants and needs. And that's where the value lies. Let's take a look at innovative marketing. Innovative marketing seeks real products and marketing improvements. So here's a great example. It's a company or a marketer that is going to look for better ways to do things, and eventually customers may even leave a current brand or product because you're being innovative in the way that you market the product or that you produce a product. Tea innovations. For example, there's tea for kids now. There's bottled bubble tea now. There's Arizona tea flavors, and there's even lollipops made out of tea for people on a health lick. So there's a lot of marketing innovation that's going on with products as well. So that's going to keep you competitive. And that's a way to be sustainable in the long term, by thinking of ways that the customer wants something or that they haven't seen, and how you can market that in a fun way, like the on health lick. There's a sense of mission marketing. That's where you define the mission in a broad social terms rather than a narrow product term. So focusing more on the social aspect versus a product aspect. A good example of this is beauty. We know that traditionally beauty is all about beautiful women, models, that are just amazing looking. Now there's another way to do that. Marketing for makeup is also going to look at it as a holistic society. Not everybody looks like that. So here is an example of, do you think that these women are fat or fit? Is she 45 and hot or 45 and not? Is she wrinkled or is she wonderful? She looks, old, or does she look experienced? Is she gray or is she gorgeous? So the way that we get to market a product is the way that society will see things. So that's a sense of mission marketing. And when you look at that, this is what they did. They marketed those people, and people that may not look like a model, in a way that it is attractive. So in this sense of mission marketing puts the society in general ahead of necessarily the product. So this is the Dove campaign for real beauty. So let's take a look at societal classifications of products. So societal marketing is companies that are marketing decisions by consumers' wants, the company's requirements, and consumers' long-term needs. And we talked about that earlier in the subject. But again, it's about really focusing on the future society long-term interests versus short-term. So here we got the long-term consumer benefits, and here we got immediate satisfaction at low or high. So let's take a look at how this would work. The goal here is to create desirable products that create both immediate customer satisfaction and long-term benefits. So you want high immediate satisfaction and you want high long run customer benefits. So the best products are the desirable products. So let's take a look at objective number 5, which is explaining the role of ethics in marketing. So corporate marketing ethics are policies and broad guidelines for everybody in an organization on how you're going to advertise, how you're going to distribute, how you're going to communicate, your pricing, the level of service, the product development, and your ethical standards. So from that standpoint, marketing ethics should really ask 3 questions. And when you are going to start at a job or going to be looking at a company, you should be asking 3 questions as well. Who should guide companies in ethics? And for the most part, it should be everybody, but there should be some sort of guiding force there. The free market and the legal system should be part of that marketing guiding entity that also helps us make good decisions. And then last but not least, individual companies and managers, believe it or not, you have a lot of power in the products and the way you market things, because somebody at the end of the day has to make a decision, and it usually starts at the middle ground of the marketing departments and works its way up to the VPs, and you have a lot of influence. So what I want to point out here is that use your marketing super efforts and superpowers for good, not evil. So again, taking a look at the sustainable company, at the foundation of marketing is the belief that companies fulfill needs and wants of customers and you will thrive. So again, sustainable marketing for the future is think about what customers want now, but in the future as well. And that's how you'll keep your competitive advantage. And companies that fail to meet consumer needs or intentionally or unintentionally harm customers, such as the Tide fiascos, or society or future generations will decline. That is a truth. That is economics. So a sustainable company is also a socially responsibility, has a lot of social responsibility perspectives that they need to meet. They need to, understand the impacts on the people, the planet, and profits. And if you do good and make the place a better world, a sustainable company will go beyond caring for the needs of today's customers, but for the future, and they will generate profits. So that's the end of chapter 20 on ethics. Mahalo until next time, and we'll talk again.